Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm Damon Martin.
And I'm Detective Patrick Guerra.
And Patrick, tonight we are reviewing a new true crime mockumentary. I think this is the first one of these we've done, right?
Think so.
We are reviewing tonight a little film called Strange Harvest.
Damon, Strange Harvest, released in August of 2025, starring the likes of Jesse J. Clarkson as Leslie Sykes, aka Mr. Shiny, Terry Apple as Detective Alexis Taylor, and Peter Zizo as Detective Joe Kirby. As you mentioned, Damon, written and directed by Stuart Ortiz and production designed by the very same Mr. Shiny himself, Jesse J. Clarkson. I had to mention that. I was like, oh, the production designer is Mr. Shiny in this. Damon, we're talking Strange Harvest.
So it's interesting. This movie got a lot of buzz last year. I think it was around when it got released. I can't remember what film festival it got
It's
released
like
at, but
Fantastic Fest or something.
a lot of our influencer friends from TikTok, a lot of our horror talk friends were talking about it. And I know that Stuart Ortiz's first film, Grave Encounters, which I mentioned in the intro, that was a hugely popular film amongst a lot of horror people and remains so. I mean, our friend Sid, Horror Chronicles, raves about it. She talks about that as one of her favorite horror films of all time and how much it scares the hell out of her. And so I eventually watched that. And looking at the list of Stuart Ortiz's filmography, I can't say I've seen a lot of his stuff, but I have seen Grave Encounters, and I do know there is a real like fandom for his work, or for his and Colin Minahan. But this is Stuart Ortiz kind of breaking out on his own.
Yeah, and I actually just recently watched Grave Encounters because I wanted to get an idea for who Stuart Ortiz was as a filmmaker. I actually met him before I watched that movie. He's a nice guy. I was screening at Monsterpalooza in LA, and he was there, and he was hanging out with the crew, and we got to chit-chatting and all that stuff, and filmmaker talking, and it made me feel like a big shot because I was around Mr. Stuart Ortiz. And then I went home and I watched Grave Encounters, and I gotta say, Damon, now I famously am not a found footage guy, but Grave Encounters and tonight's titular film, Strange Harvest, have something in common. They're really more mockumentary style. Now, Grave Encounters does, in my opinion, lean into what I would call officially the found footage style, which is just using footage that's found to tell the story. Strange Harvest, I'm happy to say, is not really a found footage movie. It's a mockumentary that uses footage like any documentary normally would, except it's all completely fictitious. I sort of prefer that, and we're going to get deeper into that later on in the podcast when we get into categories. But when we first talked about doing Strange Harvest, I was like, "Oh boy, here we go!" Because I didn't know enough about it, but I was like, "Shit, we're talking about found footage." And you know how I get, Damon. I'm a particular guy, and I'm not particularly into found footage. But my wife and I went on a Friday night. She had some time, and we went and watched this, and she picked it. She picked between this and Together because she likes documentaries. A true crime is a big, big, big market. The biggest podcast on the planet. Everybody thinks it's Joe Rogan. It's a true crime podcast. Is actually the biggest podcast on the planet, and then Joe Rogan's right behind him. True crime is mega huge. We should, if we wanted to actually make money, we'd become a true crime podcast. That's truth be told. And it was really smart for Stuart Ortiz to say, when I venture out on my own and do my own thing, I'm going to take what I learned from Grave Encounters, which I kind of enjoyed. I like that they were making fun of like ghost hunters, and I like that the ghost hunter in Grave Encounters was full of shit. I really enjoyed that part of it, but it was a pretty fictitious, setup. But Stuart Ortiz says to himself, you know, true crime is so big. What if I made a proper true crime documentary, but I got to go as far as I wanted to go? I didn't have to live within the bounds of of a real life situation. I could create a situation from the ground up. I could world build. That's the exciting stuff that I'll get curious about right away. I'll just go, you know what? I want to know what that's all about. My wife and I, we go to the theater to watch it because it is in theaters. And by the way, it's also free to stream. You can stream it on Prime and I believe Roku. So if you have a Roku, you can stream it right now. And I got to say, I was very impressed because unlike found footage, which kind of relies on a lot of meandering, it relies on a lot of kind of stagnant scenes. This is structured like a documentary. It tells you a story, it lays it out, and things unfold. And unlike a normal documentary, I'm not left kind of wanting more because this is fictitious. He can go farther if he wants to. I thought that was a great idea.
It's funny because when we talked about weapons in one of our recent reviews, and you had said like you went into that knowing basically nothing outside of me totally ruining the movie for you by telling you Julia Garner and Josh
I
Brolin are in it.
I can't forgive you for that, Damon.
um, I had that experience with Strange Harvest. The only thing I knew about this movie, and this was coming from our horror friends like Chuck and Sydney and people like that, who said they kind of defined, if I remember correctly, and this was going back like a year when they first saw it, but they mentioned it's like a found footage. And they mentioned Grave Encounters because that's what Grave Encounters is. It is much more found footage than it is a mockumentary. And so that's all I really knew. I had no idea what this movie was about. I really had no clue. And so sitting down when it started out as it basically played like a true crime documentary, I was like, is this going to change? Is it going to turn into a found footage movie? And weirdly, I think we have like a close to symbiotic relationship when it comes to found footage. Like you hate them more than I hate them, but like you kind of go in hating them. I go in and come out hating most. I know that sounds terrible, but that's kind of how we are with found footage. Like, you just do not like them in general. I give them a chance and then generally walk out going, I didn't like that. So I'm not a big found footage guy. Like, you have to do Hell House, which is incredible. I love Hell House. You
Yeah.
have to do Blair Witch, which you and I both adore. That's one of our all-time favorite films. You have to go that hard for me to be like, you did it. And even Grave Encounters, like, I appreciated like the artistry of it, and especially doing it on, I think they made that for like $100,000, something ridiculously small
Yeah.
like that. And there were elements of that I enjoyed, but even that I was kind of like, it reminded me a little bit of one of my all-time favorite horror films, Session 9.
Right.
And that movie is about basically like a creepy haunted sanitarium, creepy haunted psychiatric hospital. And that movie is like one of my all-time favorite horror movies. And it kind of felt like the found footage version of that in a way. Not the same, just take this kind of similar location, creepy shit happening. And I didn't mind Grave Encounters. I was just like, yeah, I was like, if I wanted to watch a movie like this, I'd rather watch Session 9. But it wasn't bad. I didn't like dislike it. So when I sat down for this one, Strange Harvest, I thought I was stepping into a serial killer found footage movie. So I was already going in with like my radar up, like, oh, here we go. What's this going to be like? And then it played out like a true crime documentary, straight up true crime documentary. And there was something I really appreciated about that because it didn't veer into the found footage. It didn't veer into we have to see what's happening through the eyes of the killer, or like these ridiculous moments where you would not have a camera running, which I know is one of your biggest pet peeves of found footage.
Ooh.
And weirdly, like I always say this, like I always say I'm not a big true crime person, but then I remember there are true crime documentaries that I really have enjoyed, like I'll Be Gone in the Dark, the one that was on HBO about Patton Oswalt's wife, who sadly passed away, who was investigating the Golden State Killer. And then I watched a lot of the Nixium cult documentaries.
Right.
There are two of those, one on HBO, one on Showtime, or one on Stars. And then I've watched I watched a couple of them. I guess I'm good at getting at. So I watched the one, The Jinx. I watched The Jinx. That was a good one on HBO. So I watched a few, but I know that like true crime junkies are like, they watch true crime like we watch horror movies. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, there's a new one on Netflix. So I've seen like probably 5 to 10, and the 5 to 10 I've watched, I've enjoyed, but I certainly don't seek it out, and I certainly don't like, ooh, I gotta watch this. Like, generally, it's almost like coincidental that I watch it. And I'll be honest, like the Nixium thing, the reason I got hooked into that is because I loved Smallville, and like 2 of the actors on Smallville were in that cult, and I was like, oh, Jesus, I gotta see what's going on here. So that's what kind of got me into that one. So I'm not a big true crime guy. Like, honestly, I don't dislike it. I'm not drawn into it. Like, so, I mean, some people are like hardest of hardcore about true crime. But I'll be honest, like sitting down and thinking this movie was going to be one thing and kind of getting surprised of it being something else weirdly made me like it more because I went in kind of like, all right, how are they going to do this true crime? How are they going to do this serial killer movie as a found footage movie? I was waiting for like the dumb
Yeah.
reasons why people are running cameras and like you're getting stabbed and you're still with a GoPro. Like, no, it didn't happen. And I was like, okay, now I kind of appreciate this. And the story was compelling. The mystery was compelling. The characters were solid. The acting was solid, which, let's be honest, that doesn't always happen in found footage movies. Yeah, like I was genuinely impressed. And I truly believe that a big part of that really was that I just knew nothing going in. And actually, it subverted my expectations because all I thought it was found footage.
And and everybody knows I say it every damn fucking podcast at this point that I don't watch trailers. The only reason I watched this trailer, and it was literally before we were going to go to the movies. Like we had the night off, the kids were at the grandparents, and it was between those two movies. I didn't need to see the Together trailer because I already seen the movie, and I would have been fine seeing it again. But then I thought, well, I know I'm going to hate a found footage movie, so I'll just watch the trailer. Like, what do I care? That's when I realized I was going to go watch a mockumentary, or at least that's what the trailer presented. And it was true. The trailer presented correctly that it was going to be a mockumentary. And right away, my wife perked up and was like, I do want to see that. So we ended up seeing it. And so, yeah, I did know what I was getting into. It was different this time around, but I was curious. I was like, are they going to pull the rug out from under me and try to play the found footage angle? And Stuart Ortiz said, nope, we're making a true crime mockumentary. And I hope a lot of listeners right away that piques their interest because this is the stuff that you don't often get. You almost always get people that are just kind of making found footage movies. There's nothing wrong with that, even though I can't stand them. This is not that. This is not that. This is a filmmaker crafting a world and using a very, very specific template to achieve that. What I often bump up against with found footage, it's a great way for like lower budget filmmakers to achieve their goals. And I love that. And I will always support that. And no matter what, I don't care if I hate the movie. I'm so glad that somebody got to make their movie using found footage. But very often it allows for lazy filmmaking. It allows for keep the camera rolling no matter what. And I'm like, oh God, you don't even say it. Okay. Just don't even say the words at this point. Um, this suffers none of that because it's using a documentary template and it's using it to very, very, very good effect. He's treating everything in this movie as realistic as possible, and it's still probably a pretty low budget movie. But the scale of it, Damon, it sprawls across the Inland Empire, which is a very big county in Southern California, and so it feels like a big sprawling story, and you know that this is not a big group of guys and girls that are out there filming this. It's a lower budget independent film that has enough scale, that has enough feel to it. And then when it's time to get a little bit ooky, and obviously we're dancing around that, it delivers on that. And I'm like, well, this is kind of the best of both worlds. I get the true crime aspect, and then I get something that is a little bit otherworldly or dark force. And that's not really a spoiler because you can read that in the synopsis. And the basic synopsis, Damon, before we get into spoilers, detectives are thrust into a chilling hunt for Mr. Shiny, a sadistic serial killer from the past who returns to mark the beginning of a new wave of grotesque, otherworldly crimes tied to a dark cosmic force. Interesting. So, serial killer, Lovecraftian shit. Why not? Let's try it out. Let's try it in a different format, Damon. It doesn't always have to be the other way.
And I think one of the things that I did enjoy most about this particular film, and yes, it is a mockumentary, but also the heart of the actual story of the pursuit of a serial killer. It felt real. It felt genuine. And I'm sure a lot of that played into Stuart Ortiz probably watching a lot of true crime documentaries because while there's a lot of mystery involved with true crime documentaries, and you can get something like Zodiac, which never gets solved, but generally speaking, like, at some point, there's murders, there's suspicion, there's suspects, and then somewhere along the line, generally speaking, the killer slips up, makes some mistake, and that's what leads the cops to find out who they are, or somebody figures out what they're doing, and they leads to the bust and leads to their identity, things like that. I think the way this played out feels genuine. Like, this isn't a ridiculous found. This isn't a ridiculous story. Like, I think that is where a lot of found footage and even mockumentaries to a certain extent kind of fall apart, is because the story gets ridiculous or the story just doesn't work. You're like, this would never happen. Come on now. Like, this would never in a million, like, you got, unless you're making a truly supernatural film, there's just certain things that would not happen in any, like, in a real case, like in a real, like, cops
Right.
going after a serial killer case. And so you watch some of these things, you watch some of these stories, you're like, come on now, like, be realistic. Like, at least try to. If you're telling me this is a serial killer story, at least make it feel authentic. And this movie felt authentic. Like, it wasn't, while there is like a weird underlying cosmic weirdness to this movie, but it's not the basis. It's not the center of the story. And that's not a spoiler, by the way. That's just, I mean, this is literally a serial killer mockumentary, for lack of a better way of saying it. It plays out like that. And from minute one to the end of the film, like, I as an inquisitive person, as a journalist, like, I enjoy like an investigation. And I think one of the biggest problems that TV shows and movies in general have when they do like a criminal investigation is, A, it's so unrealistic that you're like, this would just never happen, or B, they either make the cops too smart or too dumb.
Right.
Like, the cops are like, they figure things out. You're like, hold on now. You did not make that leap from this to this and you figured that out. Like, I appreciate movies like Seven, where they are just completely confounded. Like, they don't really, like, they have an idea of what's happening, but how do they find the serial killer? And they actually have to kind of create a kind of a remarkable way to track down John Doe. And I appreciate that they're not denying it's kind of a ridiculous way to do it, because he's not easy to track. There's no fingerprints. There's no way of like finding out who actually did this. And so they have to kind of take a little bit more of a leap of faith and like actually tracking down John Doe in that movie. I appreciate the symbolism of that. One of my all-time favorite crime thrillers is Heat. And when you watch Heat, you watch the way Michael Mann unravels that story and how Neil McCauley, or how Vincent Hanna tracks down Neil McCauley and his crew. It feels very authentic. It feels like what you would imagine something like that would have, with informants and, studying the case and actually tracking these people down and actually, investigating. Some of these movies just feel so inauthentic when it comes to the actual investigation portion of it. And I think Strange Harvest, one of the things I enjoyed most about it is it did feel authentic. It felt like a real investigation. Like, they didn't make any incredible leaps in this movie, or they didn't make the cops so dumb you're like, there's no way they would ever solve this.
And even when it does begin to play with the idea of the dark cosmic force, and never at any point does it become something that you couldn't believe actually happened. And what it reminded me of is actually my favorite true crime documentary series, which is Unsolved Mysteries. I grew up with Unsolved Mysteries. I loved watching it as a kid. It used to freak me the fuck out. It's still, I think, one of the scarier things that I ever used to watch when I was a kid, especially because it was real. And here I am, this 8, 9 year old kid watching Unsolved Mysteries going, that guy murdered his whole family. That's intense. That's out there in the world. And here's little Patrick knowing that and realizing that at that age. And even the reboot, which I don't know if you've watched, the reboot's great and spooky and fun, and they don't try to pretend like, slight digression. I hate Ancient Aliens, drives me insane. And my wife watches it sometimes. I'm like, it's so stupid, because they're really trying to shoehorn in the idea of something otherworldly happening. Unsolved Mysteries might play with the idea, but always from a grounded perspective. Always from a, we cannot explain what we saw in that moment. We don't know, and we're not claiming to know. And we're not bringing in the guy who's like, ooh, they don't do any of that. They just go, here's the evidence. We have it. We can show it to you. We don't know how to explain what we saw. That was the element of unsolved mysteries that always got me, which is we don't know how to explain what we saw there. That little grounded, like sort of cliffhanger to all those shows always chilled me to my bones as a kid. And Damon, that's the key to this whole damn podcast. Can you kind of freak me out a little bit? Can you do it? We will answer that question ultimately in spoilers because we always end with "Is it scary?" And we will. That's no different tonight, folks. Even though we're doing a mockumentary for, I believe, the very first time, if I'm not mistaken. Although we could argue Hell House LLC counts as that, kinda. So either way, Damon, I would say Stuart Ortiz has really found something here. The ability to build a world like this is very impressive because I've made documentaries. They're hard to make. Now make a fake one. Okay, you think, oh, it's fun because now I don't have to follow the rules. You still have to make it. It's you still got to go out. You got to get the footage. You got to get the and he has to track and pretend and make up news stories, make up news hits, create a timeline of the crimes, understand and research evidence for police, police procedure. It's a deeply, deeply researched and executed movie. If you can appreciate that on a filmmaker level like I do, I was thoroughly impressed at how thorough Stuart Ortiz was with Strange Harvest.
Yeah, and I got to give credit where credit's due story wise because like there's a story I've worked on for years. I wanted to crack for a script I was working on, and I had a general premise, and I bounced around like 10 different ideas of like where I wanted to go, and I've always run into a bit of a brick wall in like how to execute the mystery of it because that is hard to do like when it's not real, you know what I mean, when you're just trying to make up a mystery of like where, who is this person, why are they doing what they're doing, and how do you eventually discover what they're doing. And that's not even from like a cop perspective, I'm just talking like from a film perspective, like how do you track down and figure out what this person was actually doing. And there's this one story I've worked on for like 2 years now where I'm just like, I can't crack it, I can't quite figure it. I continuously go back to it and think I got something, like, nah, it doesn't work, I put it away again. So it's not easy. Like it's one thing to have like when you watch a real true crime documentary and you're like, wow, like I remember when I watched the movie Zodiac, which is David Fincher, which is an incredible movie by the way. And that is based, a lot of it is factual based. Like he doesn't go too far out of the realm of what actually happened in that case. And it is fascinating. Like it is fascinating to figure out. I watched and just recently I've seen updates on the West Memphis 3, that case down in Arkansas that was, horrific. And that's kind of come back up. And there's a 3-part documentary series called Paradise Lost. And I remember watching that because when I was a kid, when I was younger, I remember everyone was like, yeah, they were like Metallica fans, metalheads, and they got arrested and blamed for being Satanists and they, sacrificed kids and all this kind of, I was like, whoa, like I'm a metalhead, like what is this? So I think that, honestly, I think Paradise Lost may have been the first documentary I ever watched when I was a kid because I had no idea. But the story has to feel authentic to what it is, and I'm happy to say Stuart Ortiz cracked it. Like he made it in a way that it feels real. The story flows, the investigation flows, the characters work, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I'm going to sign up to watch every documentary that's out there now. Like I'm suddenly going
Yeah.
to be a documentary junkie or a true crime junkie, but I think this kind of falls into that Hell House, Blair Witch found footage category where I'm like, I don't like found footage, but I love Hell House. I love Blair Witch. I'm not a big documentary guy, but I enjoyed Strange Harvest for what it was. So I think it's going to fall in that category because I don't want people to be like, oh, now you're in. Like, let's send you 1,000.
No, don't send us anything. Anything found
Probably
footage, do not send us.
You're probably not going to hook me with that. But this played out genuinely, and I give credit to Stuart Ortiz for the way he wrote this. That it felt genuine and it felt real, and kept me on the hook. I was on the hook from beginning to end, and that's there were, even not knowing what I was kind of getting into when I sat down in the theater. When I got out, I was like, yeah, it worked. It actually worked. I was pretty damn impressed with that, and that doesn't work a lot of times when you're making like a real life situation, but making it fake. Like, a serial killer. There are really serial killers out there. Can you make it real without, making it ridiculous? Can you make it real without making it just preposterous? And yeah, he did a pretty good job. Like this, I was like, yeah, this actually fits. This actually works.
And that's because it's crafty filmmaking. That's what impressed me at the end of the day is that I didn't see somebody who was just using the found footage excuse to be a lazy filmmaker. He did his homework and it showed on the screen. Damon, before we get to categories, I have to make a plea to our audience once again. I got one. This is one more week left. I think this drops right before we actually go to air, which is The Path. My short film is screening at the Cabin in the Woods Film Festival virtually, so you can join us. You can watch virtually my film and many others. And if you go to my Instagram page, Director Patrick, you click on my link tree. It's the very first thing at the top of my link tree. You click Cabin on the Web and you support us by buying a virtual ticket and you use the discount code The Path of Patrick to get yourself 25% off. It would mean the world to me to get your support. You support this podcast and you're going to get to support a woman-led, woman-founded indie film festival, not a big film festival, a small grassroots film festival. This is how you can support indie artists. It would mean the world to me. Go to Director Patrick's Instagram page and hit that link.
There you go. And also, if you do want early access to all of our episodes, make sure you check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Rewinded Living Dead. You'll get this episode earlier than anybody else. And we're also going to be dropping, you're actually going to be coming late on this one, but we're also dropping a review of Alien Earth, the new Noah Hawley Alien Earth TV show on FX and Hulu. We are dropping that as an exclusive to our Patreon. So you want access to that? Check out our Patreon. It's $5 a month.
Cheap. We just got two more subscribers as of this recording. Literally, my email went off right before, and we got another subscriber. So shout out to Matthew J. Price, who just signed on minutes before we recorded this.
I love it. I love it. All right, folks, we're now going to get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen Strange Harvest, if you can't tell by the first half of this show, Patrick and I enjoyed it. Like this was, and I know it sounds almost like I'm almost shocked that I enjoyed it, but in a way I am, because this is just not.
Yeah.
This is not my wheelhouse. This is not the kind of film I typically go for, and I was genuinely impressed. So yeah, we enjoyed this film. So if you haven't seen Strange Harvest, go see it, check it out, and then come back. Or if you just don't care about spoilers, because I will say, and this isn't a detriment to the film, this isn't a knock, it does play out like a true crime documentary. So I don't think you're going to be shocked at how it plays out. Like it's not that kind of film where you're at the end where it's like, John Doe showing up in the police station. You're like, oh my God, it's not that. But yeah, it plays out like a true crime documentary. So go see Strange Harvest. With that being said, we're not getting into spoilers. Should we talk about, do we really even need to talk about the plot? I mean, it kind of plays out like we said at the beginning. I mean, we're basically.
There is the one big thing. Yeah. I mean, there's kind of like the catalyst of the movie.
So the movie opens with a brutal murder of a family and two detectives, and they're basically, this is happening years later, and the murders happen, and it's a really, really brutal murder of a family, and they see this weird triangle circle shape painted on the ceiling of this house, and they're both like, oh, he's back. And they go through the story of this serial killer that emerged like 10 years earlier who killed people and brutally decapitated people, like, and they were all different methods. They weren't all the same kind of way of killings. And they realized it was a serial killer they've been tracking who just suddenly disappeared. Now he's back. And so this story just follows this guy, this thing, who wears a mask, and his name is Mr. Shiny. And for the longest part of the film, they had no idea what he looked like. They had no idea who he, like, what, it was a guy, a girl. They had no idea because there was just no evidence left behind. And it's not until they actually capture something on a home security camera do they realize, like, who this guy looks like. And you see it unraveling, like, the more evidence they find, the closer they get to him, and they eventually identify him as the actual name of the person. But even then, he's almost like off the grid. He's almost like a guy who's like doesn't have like family, doesn't have like, credit cards, so there's no way to really track this guy. And these murders continue to rack up over time. But like all serial killers, he starts slipping up. He breaks in one place and doesn't actually get the person. and somebody else stops them another time. And so like it starts racking, start racking up incidents where they're getting closer and closer to capturing this guy, especially after they identify who it actually is. And it all culminates in a almost like a sting operation of sorts in a park where they track it down and they eventually get to him and they kill the serial killer as he's about to do this weird like ascendancy into the cosmic of what he was trying to accomplish with his murders. And that's the bones of the story. I'm not going to get into details, but that's really the bones of the story.
And it's a really there's a great natural progression to this movie. I love how they started off with first of all this kind of like horrendous like crime scene, right? These family tied up at this table, and then when you look up at the symbol, and this is great just filmmaking. It has nothing to do with the style of filmmaking. It's just like there's a pacing and vibe to it. The camera pans from or tilts from the tied up family up to the ceiling. You see the symbol drawn in blood. And then the detective goes right into the camera, just like a standard documentary, and goes, "Oh my God, he's back." What I loved about that was it created immediately that there is this like lore about a killer that I didn't know about. Oh my God, he's back. Oh, what we just started the movie. He's back? Yeah, he's been doing this. He's this ritualistic killer. And they get into, the minutia of true crime, which is like, what were his patterns? What were the things that he did? How did he kill people? In what ritualistic ways? He's removing organs, he's removing eyes or livers or hearts. And you're like, why? And it keeps stacking up evidence and asking you the viewer, why is he doing the things he's doing? He's doing them strangely, and for what reason? And then the case comes back to real time, and then it continues on. And then you're like, oh shit, not only did we start with this case that's happening right now that harkens back to a killer from 10 years ago from the 90s, now there's actually more killings going on. Like he's back. Like not just it's not an isolated murder. He's going to go on this killing spree. And they even I love the little effect of the letters. This is a classic thing, very, very Zodiac, which is like I'm going to send letters to the police and tell them what I'm up to, but they're so cryptic and so strange. And then Stuart Ortiz comes in with these weird like voice modifier that makes it sound like robotic and alien because we don't have the voice of Mr. Shiny. And he's like, he's saying almost nonsense, but what he basically ends every single letter with is, "I will do it again until the mission is complete, until I have completed this particular ritual that you don't
I
quite
have I
understand."
have I have four more to go until my ascendancy, or something like some weird,
Ascendancy, or yeah.
something like that. Yeah, like he has a number. He's like, I got four more to go, and that tells you there's four more murders coming. Like that's what he's trying to reach as his goal.
And that four is like a little tease. You're like, oh, four more murders are coming down the line. And then they go through each of those murders and they're building towards something. And then they eventually build towards him stealing a baby. Because as things are escalating, you get to see more and more of Mr. Shiny. That's the nice thing is like it goes from very obscure to all of a sudden you see him. And once you see him, that's pretty horrific, right? Like I think it's a girl doing like a makeup tutorial or something, and Mr. Shiny barges in her room while her camera's rolling. So you get to see him and you're like, oh, and he looks not well. He's wearing a very eerie mask. And the killings culminate in him stealing this baby away to make his final sacrifice or whatever it is that he thinks he's doing. And this is where if it's a criticism, it's only because I wanted more of it. And that is, they allude to throughout the investigation that he is fixated with the night sky, that the abandoned house or not abandoned, but the house that he was kind of living in. He had this like flop house he was renting. He had a telescope pointed at a very specific constellation. He was studying certain ancient texts. He was crisscrossing the globe during his downtime when he wasn't killing, looking for certain texts that you don't really get into why. But then they get that footage at the park where they're chasing him down that night, and he's got a baby on a pyre, and you can only guess what he's planning to do with that baby. And then somebody captures in the night sky because they're using the footage culminated from that night. Something starts to change in the sky. and it's ever so brief, and you could explain it away, and they never give you an answer for what it is. They make assumptions, and they don't make assumptions that are far-fetched. They go, "Oh, it could have been an aberration. It could have been, fuel from a missile." They don't know what they saw in the sky, and they don't just go, "It's aliens." They don't do that. They go, "We don't know what we saw there. We can't tell you what we saw there." They let you decide. They let you, the viewer, go, "What did we see?" My only criticism of this movie is I would have loved that tease a little earlier, a little sooner, maybe at about the halfway mark, right at about the middle of the movie. That would have been the new complication, the new wrinkle that you could sort of wave off and go, "Look, there are these, you know, uh, phenomenon in the sky that we can't quite understand why it would connect to him at all. But it's out there. We don't know what they are, and we're not here to speculate on that stuff. We don't have we're police detectives. We're trying to solve murders here. We're trying to stop a guy from being killed, and I don't think aliens are involved." I'd be fine with that, but with that just that little dangle of like, what is it in the night sky? Because Damon, without getting into it too deeply, I've seen something in the night sky that I cannot explain. I'm not telling you I saw a UFO. I'm telling you I saw something in the night sky that made zero sense to me. And I'll be as brief as I can. I think I was in seventh or eighth grade, and I was at my friend's house. I look up in the sky, and I see unmistakably in a clear night sky, probably around 7 o'clock at night, a glowing green orb. That's exactly what it looked like. Clear to my eyes. If you ever saw the movie Heavy Metal, the old animated movie from the 80s, it's that same green orb that's like haunting everybody. Like bright green, neon greenish orb floating through the sky, and it disappears behind some trees. And then the very next day, nobody believed me when I saw it, by the way. I was the only one who saw it, and they're like, "You're full of shit, Patrick. You're the horror weirdo. You're fucking off." And I'm like, "Nope, I saw something. Don't know what it is. I'm not telling you it was aliens. I don't know what the fuck that was." The next night news, they reported a woman in that neighborhood saw a green orb in her backyard, and it burned a symbol into her grass. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, that's the thing I saw. What the fuck is that? The last I ever heard of it, Damon. True to heart, promise you, I don't bullshit. I really don't. And I'm not saying I believe in anything. I'm just telling you the events of that night. I'll never be able to explain them properly. I don't have the evidence. It doesn't exist. So when I see things like what they presented in Strange Harvest, I go, God, just that little extra layer would have been so nice to chew on. And I'm sure, Stewart probably played with when he wanted to introduce it. He decided to introduce it at the kind of the climax of the movie to just be like, we don't know. We don't know, and we don't know what that was all about. He really tries to just stay focused on the murders. My only pushback was I would have liked that to be sooner and just kind of be that continual unknown thing.
So I'm curious, did you stick around for the post-credit scene?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know that I did because I think I looked it up and it said it didn't have one.
There is one. I stuck
Hmm.
around. I was literally on my way out, and it popped up. I was like, "Oh shit, there is a post-credit scene." And this is where I think it plays into your theory about like what was actually going on out there. So during the movie, the police are talking. They're tracking the killer, who we eventually realize is a guy named, is it Leslie Sykes? Is that his name? Am I getting the name right?
Yes, that's correct.
They eventually track down the guy's name is Leslie Sykes, and they're just struggling to find him because he's been off the grid for so long. That, like, there's just no easy way to find him. But they know who he is and know what he looks like. And they're talking about during this 10-year period when he disappeared and he stopped killing. He's traveling the world. He's tracking down all these ancient texts. He's trying to get these books and this information. They're not really sure what he's looking for, but they know it's some, kind of weird cosmic shit. And at one point, they mentioned that at one point, one of the people who they talked to who knew him, I think it was his roommate at one point, he lived with a
Yes.
guy. And his roommate tells him he went out to Joshua Tree and he was in a cave and he was like almost like an acid trip in the cave, and he came back and he was saying all kinds of weird shit, and like he had these ideas. And it's funny, like there's an episode of Entourage where they all do mushrooms and they're out in the middle of Joshua Tree. It kind of reminded me of that, but they said he went out there to Joshua Tree, went in a cave, came back, and he had all these weird ideas in his head. And that we assume kind of spiraled into whatever he's thinking about. The post-credit scene is the detective, the lead detective, the guy in Joshua Tree, and you see him almost in like a found footage way. He's like, he's got a camera like a GoPro, and he's like, I'm in Joshua Tree. I think I'm going the right direction. I think I found what I'm looking for. And you see like the thing shaking, and that's just the end of the movie. So he's teasing that like they're going to continue this investigation into what was actually happening. So to your point, I think that's where they're going, is like continuing to look into like what Mr. Shiny was after. And so the detective is in Joshua Tree looking for that cave, like looking for whatever
Yeah.
Leslie Sykes was out there for. So yeah, that I was going to mention the post credit scene anyway. It's kind of a perfect segue to that. And I will say that like the human psyche in general, when we don't understand what something is or what something happened, we are just conditioned to want to believe we know what happened.
Right.
You know, the unknown is much scarier than believing you think you know what you saw. And I'm not mocking anyone for having these beliefs. I'm just saying like it's one of the reasons why when I don't watch them, but like occasionally you come across them or someone will be on YouTube or on TikTok or whatever, the haunting videos, and they're like, oh,
Oh
see
yeah.
this door close by itself or this
Yeah,
picture
yeah.
move by itself or whatever. It's ghosts, it's haunting. And I'm like, I look at the comments, there's like a million comments like, you need to bless your house, you need to put sage, whatever. And I'm just like, there's about a billion reasons why that would have happened, or this video is fake. There's about a billion reasons why this would have happened, have nothing to do with a ghost in your house. But we're all conditioned to go to what we believe is actually there. And I think that speaks to the heart of why that mystery is a little compelling, because it is weird. There's definitely something in the sky in this movie at the end when they finally get to Leslie Sykes and kill him. But I think that not knowing, and the detective's like, we don't know what it was, and really it doesn't matter. We got our guy. We put an end to the killings. And truthfully, that's all they should care about. But I do like the mystery of that, but I also think it's on purpose, because people are conditioned to immediately think like, what was he actually after? And the fact that the detective couldn't let it go, and in that post-credit scene he's actually out in Joshua Tree trying to find the cave that Leslie Sykes apparently had this spirit journey in, tells you that even in his analytical cop brain, he can't quite let it go, because he wants to figure out what was all this about. Like, why did 10 people or 12 people, whatever the number was, like, why did 12 people have to die for this guy to reach his ascendancy or whatever? So we're all kind of preconditioned that we want answers. We don't like mystery. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
what scares people so much about things like evolution and the Big Bang. Like, it's scary to not know,
Yeah.
right? It's much
Oh,
easier to just, I know this is point A, point B, point C. I know how to get there. And mystery is terrifying. And so I think that mystery element of this movie I know it's purposeful, but I think that's why it's left so open-ended, because everyone is going to have, me personally watching it and knowing that I'm assuming this is going to be a real life story. He's not making it like a supernatural killer. My theory is it's just a weird anomaly in the sky. And like, I would not be the cop. I'm not going out to Joshua Tree. This guy was a Looney Tune. Like, you could tell he's just fucking lunatic. Like, what he's doing. I'm just like, yeah, chalk it up to being crazy, be crazy. That would be me. But somebody else, like the cop in this movie, he's like, I gotta know. Like, I gotta know what this
yeah.
was all about. So I gotta go to Joshua Tree and figure this out. So there is that kind of give and take in these kind of movies. And I dig that. I dig the mystery of that.
Mystery creates the unknown, and the unknown creates fear, the fear creates dread. Like it works. It's a very simple theory. Like, I'll always look up at the night sky and wonder, I don't think I saw an alien that night. In fact, the more I look at it, ball lightning is like a real phenomenon. Maybe that's what I saw. Maybe I saw ball lightning. I have no idea. But the fact that I'll never know is more terrifying. It's like, I don't know what that was. And why did it burn something into that woman's grass in her backyard? And I even remember what it looked like. Everything. It's so vivid. But I just go, what the fuck was that? And I wasn't a little kid. Little kids, their imagination can fill in a lot of gaps. I was old enough. It was a very vivid moment. But just never being able to know is what's scariest about it.
100%. 100%. And I get it. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I was like 16, 17, 16 years old, 17 years old. And there was a school that was torn down close to where I lived, and everyone heard a story that a boiler room had blown up at the school and killed people. Now you look online, there's no proof of that. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's the lore. And we went, and you did have to climb over like fences. Like we definitely broke in. And by the way, I was a minor, so you can't come after me now. But we had to climb. We had to climb over fence, and it was a school. Like it was a school, and there really was. Like it really was. Like there's something happened inside. I don't know what actually happened, but you go inside, and it's like this giant, like cavernous hole in the middle. And the rumor was a boiler blew up. It kind of blew up straight through the school. And when you look at the damage, it does look like that. Like at 16, I didn't really know what an explosion looked like, but like it looked like that. And this place was supposedly haunted. Now, when you go into a place and your friends are telling you this place is haunted, every creak and crack and noise, and you're going to think something's around the corner. You're going to think this is haunted because they told you it's haunted. We're predisposed to that, right? Like, it's just our instinct when someone says,
Yeah.
hey, this place is like, it's like, I know this sounds like this is a weird analogy, but it's like when someone says, hey, like I've had this experience. I remember when I went to LA one of my first times, and someone's like, whatever you do, don't go here because it's a bad neighborhood. Okay. And I remember I had to go somewhere. I can't remember where I was at, but I was somewhere like, don't be careful. It was nothing. The nicest people in the world, didn't bother me at all. They were totally cool. Give me directions. Like, I'm not saying there aren't bad. There's bad people everywhere. There's bad people in Beverly Hills. There's bad people in the richest neighborhoods in the world. But I remember people, and immediately walked in this neighborhood, and my hair's raised. So I'm like, oh, they told me, watch out. Like, you got to be careful. I didn't have to be careful. Everyone there was the nicest people in the world. But that's the instinct. So when someone tells you it's haunted, you hear something drop. You probably hear a bug flying, and you're like, "Oh my God, it's a ghost!"
Yeah.
So I think we're just predisposed with the unknown to think we can figure it out, or because we're in a certain area, because someone's kind of told us that. Like this entire movie centers around this weird guy having this like weird connection cosmically in the sky, and all his notes are really weirdly, and he has a symbol, and they actually figure out from the telescope in his backyard the constellation he's looking at fits into that symbol he's been making, this triangle symbol with these dots, and they're like, oh, that's the constellation. So they're kind of figuring out like what he's looking at. Now, why it means so much to him or what it actually means, we have no idea, but they're like, oh yeah, that's the constellation. It kind of makes the form of the symbol he's been leaving at these murder scenes. So they figure certain things out, but still, that doesn't really tell you what the purpose of the crime is. And it's almost easier to believe that in scene is something weird cosmically happening. And because it's a movie, yes, it actually could be something weird cosmically happening. But we're just predisposed to like, that's the answer. You know, like, and I'm sure in your seventh or eighth grade brain, seeing that green orb of light, you didn't necessarily go immediately to Alien, but you didn't immediately go to the other side, which is like it was probably just a ball of lightning. Right. You were somewhere in the middle because you didn't know. Yeah. Right? You didn't just you didn't immediately just flip to like, oh, it was something supernatural, but you didn't immediately say there's an easy explanation for this. Exactly. You're kind of in the middle. And I think that's what works in this movie. And I think in general, when you have these kind of situations, what makes it scarier because you don't know and you don't get the answer. And like I said, that post-credit scene is a brilliant explanation of that, because even a cop who throughout the entire movie is approaching this with an analytical, investigative brain, even he at the end, the guy's dead. They've solved the crime. It's over. Even he can't let it go. And I guarantee you, Matt Patrick, you and I are, I think, easily to say we are skeptics. Is that the best way to kind of define
I would say so, yeah.
I guarantee you, if you walked into your backyard tomorrow and you saw that same green orb of light, you'd be fucking obsessed. You'd be like, what the fuck was that? I need to figure this out. 20 years later, whatever, here it is again. So that's just, we want to know. And I think that's what works so well in this movie. It is a mystery. And like I said, me personally, like, I always fall on the other end of the spectrum. Like, it's not what you think it is. It's not an alien. It's not some weird cosmic force. It's not the constellations are shifting because you killed people or whatever the fuck is going on out there. You know what I mean? It's like, I always remember, I don't know if you ever listen to Sam Kinison, the comedian Sam Kinison. Oh, yeah. He has a great skit about the Manson family. and he's talking about how he listened to the Beatles' White Album. He's like, I listened to that White Album, I listened to that goddamn White Album. And Sam Kinison goes, it's the Beatles, you fuck. He's like, it didn't mean anything. You just thought it meant something because you're a fucking loon. Like, it didn't mean anything. And so, like, that skit always clicks in my head. And he's like, he could have been listening to the Monkees and be like, hey, we're the Monkees. Hey, we're the Monkees. People say we monkey around. What do you think he was saying, man? He's like, it's the Monkees. They weren't even a real group, you fuck. That's what always clicks in my head when I see these, like, hauntings, or in this case, this cosmic shit. And I was like, ooh, was it cosmic? Was it an alien force? No, you're just wanting to be an alien force because it was just some weird anomaly in the sky. So I always fall on the other side of things where I'm just like, no, it was nothing.
But that's so smart of Stuart Ortiz to do that. He's going, let me add in a little element here that will keep you on the hook, that will make you want to know more. That's smart. Again, like, this kind of movie normally shouldn't work for me. And there are some mockumentaries that have not worked for me. Like, very specifically, I could name them if I needed to. They don't work. And they kind of try to do the same thing. But because he plays it so straight, because he plays it so factually and grounded, it actually creates a heightened sense of mystery and a heightened sense of dread because it feels much more real. Like, I'll out one mockumentary that I didn't care for, which is Strangeland. Strangeland tries to imply that there was a zombie attack. Now, there's not a fucking zombie attack. Like, it just on its face, it's trying to build that case. And when it gets to it, you're just like, oh, zombies? Okay, there's no, okay. BS. This isn't going to work for me. Stuart Ortiz said, what if I just sprinkle in something that gives you enough plausible deniability to walk away, to do the Damon Martin and just go, it was just an aberration in the sky. You're reading into it. It's nothing. But the other person can go, no, that was something bigger. He was tapping into something, but what was it? That keeps people on the hook. It's fucking smart shit.
And like I said, weirdly, even though I'm the guy who was like, it didn't mean anything, I appreciate that credit scene with the cop. Because even the cop is like, I need to know. Like, I just need to know why. Even if he doesn't believe in all the cosmic shit, like, they don't put the post credit scene there like he's like suddenly believing in all the weird ascendancy bullshit, right? Whatever. No. He's just like, I need to know what this guy was talking. Just like you mentioned when he's traveling the globe and he's looking for these weird ancient texts, they never really explain what it's all about. They just say he was looking for it. And you could go down a rabbit hole and have a whole other movie about what was he exploring. The reality is they're just trying to solve a murder. They're just trying to get closer to what he's after. And it's like Red Dragon, the great book and eventually a movie that was made, the Thomas Harris book. And they're trying to figure out like why the Tooth Fairy is killing people, and you realize like he has this obsession with the Red Dragon painting, and it takes them time to figure it out. Now, was the Red Dragon painting actually speaking to this fucking guy? No, it wasn't. But in his head, it was. But they needed to figure that out. You have to kind of get your head. You have to be able to get inside the head of a killer, and even the cop in this movie is like, I know this isn't real, but why was this guy so obsessed with this? Like, what drove him to this? Even if he's just a Looney Tune, what drove him to this? And I think that spoke to the heart of why this works well. Now, I'll say this up front. This sounds like a really kind of a skeptical thing to say. You can send me 100 of these, and I don't know that 99 of them would work for me again. Like, this is, I honestly believe, I feel like this is a rare case where Strange Harvest worked. I don't know that you could send me 1,000 more of these and I'd be like, yeah, this just, because I'm not that guy. I'm not into these kind of films typically, but credit to Stuart Ortiz. He crafted a well done, meticulously told story that pays off. And like I said, you can send me 100 more of these and I guarantee you probably 99 won't work for me, but this one did.
That's because he wasn't being a lazy filmmaker. That's why. And there's 1,000. That's just true. There's an overabundance of horror. There really is. There's plenty of great horror. Don't get me wrong, but there's plenty of not great horror too. And it usually comes in a form similar to this. But in this case, Stuart Ortiz did it right.
Let's get into some categories, Patrick. Let's kick things off as we do each and every week here on the show. Let's talk about best performance. This is this is plays out like exactly what it is, a documentary. So you're not getting like named actors in here. Like Juliette Lewis doesn't show up and she's like one of the cops or anything.
Wouldn't
You
that be
don't
great
really
if Juliette Lewis, the actual Juliette Lewis, was part of the investigation?
yeah, you don't really know these people, which kind of goes to the heart of a low budget movie like this. So Patrick, when it comes to best performance, who gets your award for Strange Harvest?
My best performance goes to somebody who I could also argue would be the MVP because he was also our production designer, and that's Jesse J. Clarkson, who played Mr. Shiny slash Leslie Sykes. Now, why am I giving him best performance? Because he doesn't even talk in this movie. But and they most of it's just photos and a couple of pieces of footage. He creeps you the fuck out without having to do anything. And he's just and it's I'm not trying to insult Jesse. He creeps you out just looking at him. And I think he just knew, and he worked with Stewart on just how to pose himself just so in a picture, how to move in a certain moment. All of that worked to just be like, I don't want to be around that guy. The fact that I knew everything was fake, I knew everything is staged, but I still had a reaction to Mr. Shiny is credit to how Jesse performed it.
It reminded me a little bit, and I know people are like, "Wow, you're really comparing like an all-time great performance," but it just reminded me a little bit of Jodie Foster talking about her experience with Anthony Hopkins and Silence of the Lambs, where like they never interacted together, they never really met. When she did scenes with him, it was with him behind that glass and in the cage, and
Right.
she was genuinely creeped out by him because like that's the demeanor she needed to carry as her character as Clarice dealing with a serial killer psychopath like Hannibal Lecter. And I think the unknown of Leslie Sykes and the way that this character is presented in such a creepy way, and mostly the only photo we really see him is mostly just him in a driver's license photo, which
I think
nobody
so.
looks good in a driver's license photo. So
I
you
know I
know,
don't.
so yeah, like they credit, like you gotta, like that's. I think that this is gonna be one of those ones where you're like looking back, like yeah, that was a creepy ass bastard. Sorry, I'm not insulting the dude who actually played
Sorry,
Leslie
Jesse.
Sykes. Sorry, Jesse, but like you came off as a creepy bastard. It worked. Um, my best performance, I'm giving it to. I know this sounds like such an insult, but I could not get this image out of my head the entire movie. He is my Timu Tom Sizemore, and that is that is Peter Zizzo as Detective Joe Kirby, the lead in this movie. Tell me you didn't get Tom Sizemore
Oh,
vibes from him.
very,
Okay.
very Tom Sizemore vibes.
Okay.
Big Tom
I,
Sizemore.
I was at some point, I just wanted him to stop, look at the camera, and go, "Well, you know what? For me, the action is the juice." Uh, he looks so much like and I didn't know this about him, so I looked this up after. Peter Zizzo is a very famous songwriter.
Oh,
He's written for like Celine Dion, Avril Lavigne, and two of his closest friends are David Levion and wow god I just had a freaking brain fart in this David Levion and oh god why am I forgetting his name Brian Koppelman, thank you, sorry, Brian Koppelman
oh,
and
okay.
David Levion. If you don't know that name, they're the guys who did Rounders. They did Billions, which is one of my favorite shows of the last decade. Brian Koppelman, I've talked to him a few times privately. Super nice guy. He's actually really, you would know if you're more recent, Brian Koppelman plays computer in The Bear, if you watch The Bear.
Yeah.
He's really good friends with them. They actually named a character in Rounders after Zizzo. And he was in Billions for like a couple episodes. But so like I was not familiar with him. I looked him up. I was like, wow, he's like a pretty prolific songwriter. He wrote for Jennifer Lopez, Avril Lavigne. I'm looking at his list now. Blake Lewis. Yeah, all kinds of like really famous artists. I was like, wow, that's super credit. But to his credit, he came off playing the grizzled, kind of downtrodden detective a little bit, like bags
Yeah.
under his eyes, like he's seen some shit. Like like
Yeah.
that 1,000-yard stare they talk about in Full Metal Jacket, like he's been there, he's seen some shit. But as soon as I saw him, I was like, God damn! I was like, he is Tom Sizemore, like reinvented. So yeah, I like Peter Zizzo's performance. He played the grizzled, hardened detective really well.
He does. Yeah. That Tom Sizemore thing is so true. I was like, he's probably stood in for Tom Sizemore at least once or twice.
He looks so much like him. I was like, oh my god! Like, and of course, sadly, Tom Sizemore's no longer with us. But I was a big Tom Sizemore fan, and when I saw him, I was like, oh my god, he looks just like him. So yeah, that was my first instinct. Next category, Patrick, and we have the same answer here, so I'm just going to let you open it. We'll talk about it. Our next category is our MVP. So when it comes to Strange Harvest, who gets our MVP, our shared MVP award, as it is?
I bet the audience could guess right away that our MVP goes to Stuart Ortiz, our director and writer, for really crafting what felt very real and very grounded the entire time, and almost like to a fault. Like you could maybe accuse this movie of being a little dry because at times it really is procedural, but he needed to commit to the idea that this was a real thing, even though he knows everybody that's sitting down knows it's not real. He has to put you in that world. So he can't mess up. He cannot put a foot wrong or it all of a sudden becomes unbelievable and you're out of the gag. You need to be bought into what he's selling despite knowing as you come in that this is not real footage, this is not a real crime. Some people, there's a few dopes out there who are going to believe it's real, but they're not smart people. That happens. We got a lot of them. He had to design something that looked and felt so real, and I feel like he didn't miss any details. That is not easy to do.
I'll go one step further and say one of the reasons why I think he deserves a lot of credit for this particular movie is how meticulous he was with the storytelling. And I'll give you one example. There's a murder that takes place in this movie where he basically puts a guy into a pool with like a million leeches, and the leeches basically bleed him dry. And they do a really good job of the storytelling of like how it works. Like we all know what a leech is. You should know what a leech is, anyways. But like how it would actually hurt, the symbol, the bite of a leech leaves behind. That kind of meticulous storytelling that you would only get if you were really detailed in what you're creating here in the world you're creating. I love that. And I thought that was really, really smart because I think in a lot, even a lot of true, like a couple of the true crime documentaries I've watched, you almost feel like, how did you not see that? Like, how did you not look deeper into that? Like, and I think that's what spawned true crime podcasts. Because true crime podcasts was like, how the fuck did they not figure this out?
Right.
And to their credit, some true crime podcasts have actually figured out crimes. They've actually played a part in helping end investigations. So it's real. But I thought that Stuart Ortiz's meticulous nature of like telling this story and like how the plot unravels was just really smart and detailed. You know what I mean? They didn't
Yes.
leave any stone unturned, which I thought was a really smart way of doing this.
Yeah, I mean this we've been saying it all night. This is how you sell this. You have to be meticulous, and he didn't miss a step.
Yeah. So next category, Patrick, and I hope you don't mind, I'm going to go first, is best scare. And I just mentioned it, so I just want to roll into what I said was best scare. And for me, the best scare in this movie were the brief moments for me when you see Mr. Shiny and the scene of the girl in her bedroom doing the makeup tutorial when they said we never caught a glimpse of him until now, and they just show you this poor little girl doing like a makeup tutorial, and she hears someone downstairs. She says, "Mom, Dad, are you home?" And then you hear her screaming, close the door, and you see Mr. Shiny burst in and shoots her. Now this little girl actually survived, but they tell the story about how like he actually ends up going to the hospital and spiking her IV and dying. But that scene is harrowing because it just feels real. Like
Yeah.
she's doing this makeup tutorial and there's a home invasion and this guy bursts into her room and kills her. It's just it feels real. Like that's scary shit. And like it's not a good jump scare necessarily, and it's not like that, butthole clenching kind of terror. But it's just that realism of like, oh my God, this is a home invasion. And here's this like 16-year-old girl getting murdered on camera. It's pretty harrowing.
Yeah, it's disturbing. And it's disturbing because it feels real, right? And so again, that's part of that meticulous nature, the commitment to the language of this film. He was like, I have to make it feel real without making it feel gratuitous because I'm trying to pass this off as a documentary. So how do I play that? That is why that scene works so well.
So what about you, Patrick? What's your best scare in this movie?
Damon, I went a little bit more on the unsolved mysteries route, and I went for the footage of the anomaly in the sky. Again, it harkens back to what happened to me when I was a young lad and what I saw, and I just thought to myself, like, I remember the first time I saw something like that and what it made me feel. And that's even before I saw the glowing orb in the sky. Like even just like old UFO, like Unsolved Mysteries would have UFO sightings on there, and you'd see grainy footage of something going across the sky. Eh, The idea of I don't know what that is, and we're not going to get to it. Oh, we're not going to solve that. Oh, so my mind gets to wander and decide what that could possibly have been. And that's the best way to do horror, Damon, is to leave the horror in the viewer's mind. And that's what that scene does for me. So these are not typical jump scares. They're vibe scares. They're things that get under your skin. And to me, it was just it really reminded me of when I was young and the things that used to freak me out when I was little. I loved it.
If they put a green orb in this movie, it would really fuck you up.
I love it. Oh, I found like some ball lightning footage the other day after doing some research on this, and the ball lightning footage, if you look it up on YouTube, is it's cool. It's not scary. It's just like holy shit, that's amazing. So I am a freak for that stuff, Damon. I don't believe in crypto zoology or anything like that, but I will consume it because to me it's fascinating. It's fun to watch. It's fun to just go, well, what was it then? You know, like some guy in a suit probably, but either way, it's fun to watch that stuff and feel it.
No, I agree. I agree. It is fun. Next category, Patrick, best gore. Now, this, it's weird because when you're dealing with a true crime documentary, in this case, a mockumentary, you're getting crime scenes, and that's generally where you're going to get the most. And there's some pretty gnarly shit in this movie. So, Patrick, when it comes to best gore, what gets your award for that in Strange Harvest?
My best gore goes to the Playground Blood Eagle. And so at one point, I believe it's like a security guard or something. It helps with clues on where Mr. Shiny might be. And then I can't remember the timeline, but a little while down the road, he pays the price for helping them close in on Mr. Shiny. And Mr. Shiny creates what is called a blood eagle with his body. And you mentioned Hannibal Lecter earlier. Hannibal Lecter does the same thing where you mount somebody up on something and you split open their back, split open their rib cage, and pull their lungs out of their back to create little wings. And that is the blood eagle. It's a real torture and execution style that was used, I believe, in the Viking era. It was something that they would do, and it's disturbing to see. It's disturbing to see somebody's back ripped open and their lungs splayed out for you. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're gonna go for it, you fucking go for it.
Yeah, that was pretty gnarly. There was a decapitation that was also pretty gnarly in this movie when they showed it like on the ground covered in like maggots and dirt and
Yeah,
slime. It was pretty gross. But I think the one going back to when I talked about the meticulous nature of this movie, the one that freaked me out the most was the body covered in leech bites. That was just so gross and grotesque. Like I'm not a big bug person. Like I'm not scared of bugs necessarily, but that doesn't necessarily mean I want to be bitten and like stung by
yeah.
bugs. And the idea of just being bitten and stung, or in this case, drained by thousands of leeches just sounds really disgusting to me. And the aftermath of that is this guy just literally just like holes over his entire body. It was so gross, and it really gave me the willies watching the movie. It's like, oh, it just, oh, it's just gross. Like imagine just being stung by 1,000 bees, or being stung or being bitten by 1,000,000 mosquitoes. Like that just sounds gross. And just seeing the aftermath of this poor guy with like 1,000,000 leech bites on him was just really grotesque.
It's disgusting. It gives you the willies. And I want to give an honorable mention. You mentioned like realistic things, the body parts in the tarp, that felt real true crime. And then they show it and you're like, oh, that's gross. That's a bunch of chopped up body parts. But the gore wasn't as intense on that one, but it was still
I
one of
mean,
those things that invoked the imagery of real true crime. We were just like, yeah, somebody will be on a hiking path and they'll see a tarp and they're like, wait a minute, what's inside there? It's a bunch of chopped up body parts.
the bloodletting to open the movie when he kills a family, he literally cuts their femoral artery and they bleed into a bucket and they just slowly bleed to death. And they show that. It's like, oh, it's just so gruesome.
Yeah.
Like, and the reality is, going to the realism of this movie, that probably has happened at some point. I don't know the research of it. I've
Yeah.
not looked it up, but somebody has probably done that. And so that's just, oh, that was hard to watch, especially when you're talking about like a mom and dad and a kid. It's just,
Yeah.
oh,
Hardcore.
gruesome, gruesome. Patrick, next category, Favorite mockumentary horror. Now, this is a tough category for us because we're openly saying this is not really our thing. I had to dig a little deeper for this. When you hit me with this category, I was like, "Oh shit, this is gonna be hard because I did find one, and actually I found one I really liked." But Patrick, for you, what is your favorite mockumentary horror, excluding Strange Harvest, which sounds like might slot into that category soon?
Oh, it's in the running. It's in the top three because there's probably not top five. Um, my favorite mockumentary horror is still Lake Mungo. And I even watched it again because I'm doing some research for a script that I'm helping develop, and I wanted to watch it again because I think it is such a great mockumentary. It really is. I mean, it's much like Strange Harvest. It's people sitting down and talking about a case of a missing girl who was found drowned in a lake. And the mystery around why she died. Now that one does take a turn to the supernatural, but then it tries to explain it away with something real, but then it goes back to supernatural again. It's still creepy as hell. And they again tap into the same unsolved mystery vibes that I enjoyed as a kid. So even though I was like, well, okay, none of this can happen. None of this is actually a thing that can happen. But they committed as closely as they could to realism to create a sense of reality that makes you go, oh God, in this instance where I'm sitting here, is did this person come back to life or something like that? That's insane. I think it's a very, very well crafted movie that really draws you in.
Yeah, Lake Mungo is good. I'll give you credit for that. When I saw that, I was like, "Oh, that is a good one." I've seen it. I think maybe once or twice. I know I've seen it once, but I maybe I've seen it twice. But it is a really well done one. So my first instinct was like the first one that popped in my head was Behind the Mask, the Legend of Leslie Vernon, that movie, the kind of funny mockumentary horror
I
film.
need to watch it. Yeah, it's
It's
been
good.
recommended multiple times.
But the one I ended up going with, which I know people are going to say it's not straight up mockumentary, but it is because they go there to film a documentary of an exorcism, is the movie The Last Exorcism. I love that movie. That's probably like when I talk about found footage, because it is found footage, but it's they're filming a documentary of like they're trying to film a documentary of a preacher performing an exorcism. So you do get a lot of the shaky camera stuff, but it's understandable because they're literally telling you at the beginning we're filming an exorcism, but it is a documentary, and basically the premise of the movie is like this preacher is like more or less a huckster, like he's not real. They fake exorcisms for their little documentary, and they use it to like drum up money and basically bilk people out of millions or hundreds or whatever. They're bilking people out of their money to say, oh, we performed exorcisms. They're not really doing it. And then they go to an exorcism and they actually have to do it. They actually go into a real situation where the shit has gone haywire, and it's genuinely scary. It's a fucking freaky ass movie, and it's got to be one of my like in the hierarchy of like found footage movies. It's like Blair Witch, Hell House, and then for me, it's like The Last Exorcism. And it doesn't play. I mean, there are definitely scenes of like the sit down interview of like they interview the dad of the kid who's possessed, they interview the
Yeah.
kid, they interview the preacher. So there is that element, but a lot of it is like leading into like the exorcism element. And there's actually an investigation in that movie, like what they think is actually happening to this kid, and it's really well done. And they made a sequel which is not good, but the original, The Last Exorcism, is actually like one of my favorite movies. It's really well done. And it does bleed the line between found footage and mockumentary, but it starts out truly just as a mockumentary.
I do need to catch up on that one because you do talk about that. And believe it or not, for all the hemming and hawing I do about found footage, I actually watch a lot of it. So I might as well add Damon's favorite to my list. And I also, Damon, I would have accepted Hell House LLC, the original, because they do sit down interviews. They do examine evidence and all that stuff. It's just that when you're in the found footage, it's so obvious that it's not real, right? Like there's like a demon woman in there and stuff. You're like, okay, none of that can actually happen. So that doesn't make sense. So I think minus the demon woman, which by the way produces one of the best scares in the whole Hell House movie. All those like clowns that may or may not be looking at you, phenomenal. Still one of the best found footage films I've ever watched.
I've said this on the show, and I'm not just saying it again. I'll say it again now. Like one of the few films over the last like 5 years that genuinely scared me. Like it made me genuinely jump out of my seat. Like that
Yeah.
scene when the clown turns to look at you, I was like, oh fuck! Like it literally got me, and it's really, really, really hard to get me in those kind of moments. So
That's
Creditelli,
a
I
good one.
agree. I almost went Hell House, but I kind of fell in your line of thinking too. Like it does fall more to the found footage than the mockumentary than it does that.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, I kind of eliminated it based on that. Patrick, next category: remake, sequel, or leave it alone. This is pretty self-explanatory, but this is where we take whatever movie we're reviewing and we say, should they remake it, should they sequelize it, or should they leave it alone? Now, I did give you a little extra information about that post-credit scene that you didn't see, which kind of hinted. So, remake, sequel, or leave it alone?
Damon, I knew when I was done that I wanted a sequel. And I want a sequel that delves into the supernatural element of this or whatever it is. The cosmic, they don't truly get into it, but we knew he was looking for special ancient books. We knew he was practicing very specific rituals. We don't know for why and for whom. We don't know what was in that cave that changed his life. You still got me. You might as well cash in on it. Let's go Strange Harvest 2.
100%. That's the answer, especially with that post-credit scene with the cop still going into the Joshua tree looking for that cave. You've said it perfectly. And the reality is, I'm not trying to tell Stuart Ortiz his business or how he should do this. The reality is, when you talk about a serial killer movie like this, it's very easy to say that he had a partner through all this you never know, you never knew about, you never found out about. He could have easily had someone helping him or, orchestrating some of these murders. Because, like, they actually mentioned a couple of times, like, they were almost disbelieving that one guy could do
Yeah.
this. Like, they're just like, this is really, like, this is really intense and, like, really meticulous, like, way he's staging these bodies and all that kind of stuff. They've set it up perfectly to say he had a partner or they had another person involved or whatever. So sequel all the way, and I'm in. I'd be interested to see where they go with it. So yeah, I'm down for a sequel to this one as well. Patrick, next category: can we survive this horror film? Now, this is a straight up serial killer movie, and reality wise, is you don't know how you would actually deal with a serial killer. But Patrick, put yourself in the shoes of these characters. You're coming up against Mr. Shiny. Are you making it out alive?
I'll tell you why I'm not. And it's because of the makeup tutorial girl. That evidence alone made me realize that if you get into Mr. Shiny's sights, he's going to make sure that you are punished no matter what. And the scene in the hospital really gave you a glimpse of it. And I was curious if they were going to go down this road, and they didn't. But there's almost an implication that people in the hospital could not see him. He was walking amongst them. He had switched clothes and he was actually in a nurse's smock. So they surmised that they didn't recognize him because he was dressed like hospital employees. So, but ultimately, at the end of the day, he had this thing about him that allowed him to move with rarely ever being seen. That makes him dangerous. That means he's unpredictable. That means I won't see him coming. And that's a big ass problem.
So my original instinct is like for the vast majority of this movie, I would be like, yeah, I think I'd make it through because like just in one-on-one hand-to-hand combat, I'm pretty confident, you know, unless
Yeah.
someone's like, truly skilled, like I can handle myself. And I'm also 6'3" and I'm a big dude.
Yeah.
What ruined it for me, honestly, what made me say I wouldn't survive this is that scene with the influencer girl on her computer because he just comes in and shoots her. Now I have to imagine if Mr. Shiny is even remotely intelligent, which he seems to be, like he's a lunatic, but he's intelligent. If he sees me, he's not gonna be like, let me just wrestle with this dude. Like, let me wrestle with the 6'3"
Yeah, he's not
guy.
going to bother.
I'm dead because he's just gonna shoot me. So like in my head, for the bulk of this movie, I'm like, I think I could do okay because like in the one like when he does about attacking the family, like he literally just attacks them in their bed, and I'm like, I can handle myself in a fight. Like, you may eventually get the better of me, but I'm going to fuck you up along the way. But then when he just walks in and shoots the girl, I'm like, well, there's no defense to a bullet. So, yeah, I'm probably not making out of this thing. So, when I saw that scene, I was like, well, I'm fucked. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
He's not wrestling with me. He's not going to come in and be like, let's go one-on-one. No, none of that.
No.
Bullet to the head, I'm done.
He's got organs to harvest.
Yeah, exactly. Patrick, last category is it scary? Now, this film falls into a little different category because I don't know if they're really trying to jump scare you or traditionally terrify you, but because they play it straight for the vast majority of this movie, they're trying to say this could happen. And I've always said those kind of films are more terrifying, just like home invasion thrillers, because that's why I think a lot of people think like The Strangers is one of the scariest movies of all time, because it actually could happen to you. You don't know that people would come in with masks and all that kind of shit, but like you could have a home invasion and this could happen to you. So, taking away the cosmic nature of it, maybe this could happen to you. So, is this movie scary, Patrick?
This movie creeps you out. This movie is drenched in dread. That works. Now, did I go home and was I scared to look up at the night sky? No. Was I scared that the Mr. Shiny was in my house? None of that. But in the moment, while you're immersed in the world that Stuart Ortiz put together, you're creeped out. It's creepy. It's creepy to see. It's creepy to see the crime scenes. It's creepy to see what he does. It's creepy to think why he's doing it. That stuff works. And so ultimately, and I think it's going to work for a lot of people. I really do, because of the fact that it's a true crime format and that's universally a lot of people are really into it. I think it's going to creep a lot of people out.
It is very creepy, and it's a movie that sticks with you. And here's how I knew that I liked it. A documentary that you and I actually talked about before that we didn't mention tonight, which is kind of weird, Making a Murderer on
Yes.
Netflix.
Great doc.
I remember when I watched that the first time, and I immediately fell down a rabbit hole of like looking up articles and videos and like trying to see where the story went after the end. They ended up doing a second part, but I remember watching the first part of that, and I was just like, "What happened? What
Yeah.
happened?" Um, this movie had that effect. Like it was
Hmm.
creepy, and I was like, "Ooh, I like if this was real, I would have gone home immediately and hit Google and been like, what happened to this crime? Like, where's the real like? Because you in a 2 hour documentary, in this case, an hour and a half documentary, like, you really can't fit everything in there. What did I miss? And that's when I knew they did it effectively. So it's creepy, it's horrifying, and it works. And the reason it works is that if this had been a real thing, I would have immediately come home and been like, what happened to that detective? What happened to this case? Did they ever find out like what actually was going on in this guy? If this was real, that would have been my instinct, and that tells me they made a quality movie and it was genuinely creepy because this movie was genuinely creepy.
It was.
So Strange Harvest is out there right now. Check it out. It's in theaters, and as you said, it's on demand also, right? You said?
Yeah, it's on. It looks like it's free on Roku and possibly on Prime Video, and I'm sure it's available for rent right now, but you can kind of see it anywhere.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater, and I always like the theater experience.
I'm
So
glad I saw it in the theater. Yeah.
there was only one show, so I don't even know how many shows are going to be out there by the time we release this podcast, but you can probably see it on demand. But it's worth your time. Like, for a couple of guys who are not really into this style of movie, for us to give it your approval, it's a pretty fair shake to say it's a pretty good movie.
Yes, it's a huge seal of approval on our part. You're welcome, Stuart.
Yeah. You're welcome, Stuart. Thank you so much for everyone tuning in. As always, make sure you check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course over on our website, rewindoflivingdead.com. We also got a YouTube page. Just search Rewind of Living Dead on YouTube. And as I always say, if you want access to these episodes early or bonus episodes like our review of Alien Earth, go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Rewind of the Living Dead. $5 a month, you get access to the bonus episodes as well as early access to our regular episodes. So like this episode won't drop until Tuesday going into Wednesday. We'll drop it like Thursday going into Friday. So you get like 5 days early. So again, if you're a fan, you want early access, $5 a month, all you got to do to get that. And as I said, there's bonuses like our Alien Earth. We did our Final Destination wrap-up show, which is only on Patreon. So lots of stuff that you can only get. We did a Superman review. If you like that movie, you're just curious about how we talk about a movie that's not a horror movie. That's also on there. So $5 a month, patreon.com/Rewind of Living Dead, and join up over there. If you got questions, comments, movies you'd like us to review, hit us up anytime on email, rotlivingdead@gmail.com. That's rot. livingdead@gmail.com, or find us on social media. Just search Rewind of the Living Dead on Twitter/X, Facebook, and of course on Instagram. We always try to respond to all the messages we get over there, so please send us messages. We'd love to hear from you guys. And you can also hit us up on our own personal social media channels. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And a big thank you, as always, once again, for everyone that tunes in the show. We'll be back next week with another edition of Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you then.
Peace.